Hey, what's up, everybody? Listen, I want to talk about compassion and how compassion can be a superpower in your life and in your business. Now, I'm not talking about a superpower to control people, and actually, that would mean more of a super force, a force. There's a difference between power and force. Force means we're trying to make other people or things do what we want. A power is something that comes from within that all of us have. And compassion, sometimes we believe, is something that either can't be developed or isn't a skill, that it's innate, and that if we have too little of it or too much, that we're bad. I've been taught in my life that if you have too much compassion for something, that you're just being, ignorant, rosy-colored, Pollyanna stupid. Or that if you don't have enough, that you're being egotistical, rude, and hurtful to people. The fact of the matter is that we need to disassociate compassion from equating to good or bad, the amount that we have or not, and realize that compassion is not about us. It's not about what we feel. Compassion is about seeing another person, having empathy, not to assume what they mean, by the way. And that's the difference between that. Compassion, I heard an analogy this morning called Hanlans Razor. And the idea is that there's two sides to this. One is the compassionate side and the other one is not. And the thing is that we would not attribute to malice what could be explained with just mere, basic, I don't like the word stupid, but stupidity. Meaning, if people make mistakes, it's not that they're dumb or bad, but they weren't trying to be evil. And so when somebody does something that we don't like, we don't assume that they're trying to be evil. Compassion doesn't assume an evil or good motive about anything. It more looks at other people and says, oh, maybe they just didn't know. Maybe they just misunderstood. Maybe they just were trying to validate themselves, trying to validate. And so you get it. The idea is that we can't assume that there's evil versus just this is how somebody operates. And so compassion can look at even other adults and say, hey, listen, kind of the way we look at children. And many times we're taught that viewing adults the way we view children is disrespectful or dishonorable. And that's why oftentimes we don't have compassion. Is we're taught that, well, a grown adult, if I view them the way I would a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old that they just don't understand, that is discrediting them, that is knocking them down. You don't tell the person that you're viewing them that way. That goes into accusation. That goes into not being compassionate, because compassion will say, oh, maybe they just didn't understand, they don't know what they're doing, but I don't need to validate my viewpoint about that by telling them that they're wrong. I don't need to go out there and tell somebody, hey, you're wrong for doing this. And unfortunately, in the past, I've done that. I have, and I've not been the most compassionate of where people are coming from. And over the last 6 months, I've been really trying to learn, okay, how can I be a better leader for the people that follow me and teach other people to be better leaders? These are skills that we're not taught. Some people they're taught this growing up, but the majority of people that I know and that I come in contact with are not taught the emotional intelligence of compassion and what it really means. Compassion never accuses, and that's the biggest part about it. You see, if you accuse somebody, hey, you're just being dumb, you're just misunderstanding, that's actually self-serving. That's actually serving the self to validate that we have the correct viewpoint. And so we need to be a leader, take a step up, take the higher ground, be the bigger person to where we don't need to validate ourselves for how we view another person. We can have compassion and say, oh, they just don't understand, and that's okay, and be okay with understanding another person. Understanding somebody and where they're coming from doesn't equate to agreement. It doesn't equate to that we believe that it's right. And that's where compassion comes from. We're not saying that, oh, somebody didn't know, but that's right for them, but we don't have to make them know the right thing. Because usually somebody that's like that, they also might be struggling, and they will attribute possibly a rude or mean or belligerent motive to trying to force them to see things in the right viewpoint. Have you ever had somebody come up to you and say, hey, you you really just, that wasn't good, you shouldn't have done that, like that was dumb, that was stupid, does that make you feel good? It doesn't. It doesn't make anybody feel good at all. And so many times we're afraid to have compassion for people from that perspective because we don't want to feel what we felt from other people. But compassion says, you know what? Maybe they just didn't understand. They're going through a lot. They're dealing with a lot. I don't need to project on them what I'm seeing. I don't need them to agree with what I'm seeing. And that's the biggest part about this. They don't need to agree with you and what you're seeing, but you can have compassion and say, okay, let's take a step back here. Maybe this person isn't ready to go to the next level. Maybe this person isn't ready to take that next step. Think again like a child who is taking their first steps. They're not ready to go walk on their own in the street. They're not ready to do that like an adult is. It's the same way with people of all ages. And so having compassion as a superpower it's really about keeping your emotions in check, not assuming evil motives of people, not trying to validate yourself from compassion and say, oh, I'm ultra compassionate, by the way. It's not about that. It's about being able to look at what's going on in a situation, to understand with empathy where other people are coming from without needing them to agree with how you see it, without needing to force your viewpoint on anybody, so that you can be a powerful person. And a powerful person does not force or make anybody agree with their viewpoint. They just are. As soon as you step into trying to make somebody understand, trying to make them agree with you, you step out of power. And you step into force and into a lower frequency energy that is trying to seek just validation. Compassion is never about validating yourself as better than, good, or anything like that. It's about saying, listen, we're all in this together. I know my own shortcomings, and so I understand other people have their own. And it's having the same level of compassion for yourself and others that you want them to have for you. Many times when we're self-critical, many times maybe we grew up in an authoritarian type of a environment, we have a hard time being compassionate for ourselves. And oftentimes when we don't have compassion for others, it's tied to the fact that we also don't have it for ourselves. It's also tied to the fact that we don't give ourselves grace to mess up. That when we do mess up, we assume an evil motive. And so we're projecting onto other people how we would assume we would be if we did what they're doing. See what I'm saying? And so it's tied to judgment. And then when other people judge us in the same way, projecting, we feel insecure, sad, and just wish this other person would have compassion on us. Listen, everybody wants others to be compassionate to their situation. We're all in this together. It doesn't mean that you're less than, lower than, better than anybody. It just means that I see you, I understand you, I know what you're going through. We're in this together. I support you. By the way, you can support people that you don't agree with, that you don't agree with what they're doing, that you are actually opposed to what they're doing by having compassion. I support you as a human being. I don't agree with a single thing you're doing, and that's my truth, and that's okay, and I don't have to, but I have compassion and respect for you as another person. And so I'm showing you the type of respect that I expect by giving it to you, and compassion is tied to respect. It's tied to being respectful of other people, not being brash, not forcing our way or wanting other people to need to see us the way that we see ourselves, but rather saying we're all in this together. We can all grow. And we can all reach our goals together by walking and living as powerful people that are happening all the time, that don't need validation to equate to our self-worth, that don't need other people to tell us good job to equate to our value. We know our value. We have confidence in ourselves, whether other people agree with it or not. Whether they validate us or not, it does not matter, because we know who we are, whose we are, what we were made for, and where we are going. And when you can do that, when you come from that place of confidence, and I get it, Most people that watch my videos, most people that doesn't come naturally. That's hard. It's hard for me too. That's why we need to have compassion for ourselves that, you know what? I'm not where I was yesterday. I'm not where I want to be, but I'm growing and I'm compounding 1% better every single day. Keep moving forward to reach my goals. Keep walking in love. Keep walking in kindness. Keep walking in compassion. Getting rid of judgment in my life. Getting rid of needing to prove and validate myself to other people for my self-worth. And when we can do that, we can live and walk as powerful, confident people that are unstoppable in every single area of our lives. Maybe you're watching this right now and you're feeling something inside of you. There might be something that's stirring. You're like, well, either this just isn't resonating or there's just something stuck there. That generally points to a belief that came in. I'm going to give a little bit of advice here. It comes from a belief that usually came in from an experience that is tied to some sort of a false belief. And so by going through this process, we're able to identify false beliefs that maybe we have about ourselves and other people that are preventing us from walking and living as powerful people. And when we can identify and come face to face with those things, then we can have compassion and love for ourselves to say, you know what? Let's dive deep into this. Why is this? What's the truth? What am I telling myself in this situation? And then say, God, what are you saying about me in this situation? Listen, God has compassion on everybody. That's the thing. Is oftentimes we believe that God is looking down on us as an authoritarian that's trying to force other people to do things. God's not a narcissist. God doesn't force anybody to do anything under fear of pain or punishment. God always has compassion. Love is kind. It's patient. And so for you to walk and live with compassion for others, we have to start by having love and self-love and compassion for ourselves and realize that we can only overflow how we treat ourselves, how we talk to ourselves, our self-talk. Giving yourself grace to make mistakes. On the path to your goals, you're going to mess up. You're going to skin your knee. You're going to fall down. You're going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. Trying to avoid that is going to only lead you spinning around in circles. Start to give yourself grace for those mistakes. Start to have compassion for yourself. And then make a practice of also having compassion on other people. Not assuming evil, not assuming anything bad about somebody, not assuming the worst, but just saying, you know what? Maybe they just don't know. That's okay. They don't need to. They're on their own journey. Allow other people to be on their own journey the same way that you wish other people would for you. Maybe you didn't grow up in an environment that allowed you to be on a journey and you had to be perfect all the time. I'm here to say that you have permission to be yourself and you have permission to grow and be the person that God made you to be and walk in love and compassion in all things. Grow your life, everybody, and we'll talk soon.